called herself Gail. She was born in Denver. Her mother was a concert violinist. Her father was dean of Georgetown University Dental School, which led her into pre-med at the George Washington University. She had been drawing and painting since age 5, so it was natural for her to be recruited for applied medical art, at which she excelled, and to complete a Johns Hopkins Medical School program in the Department of Arts as applied to medicine. She freelanced for medical publishers and hospitals in the Washington-Baltimore area. At that time, photography was not allowed in the operation room. She would draw the surgery, start to finish, each step on a thin oilskin type paper, very detailed. And this would be the record for the surgery, start to finish. Now, I saw one of her work she had kept, and the oilskins were like that big and maybe sometimes this thick. She'd do the first cut, the surgeon cut, and the next, and you could flip it, and that would be the whole, it would be like a movie because of the thin paper. And it was very detailed. The one I saw was that he removed a gallbladder. And all the arteries, the veins, everything was just perfect. And that's where her pre-med came into. Okay, the next stop for Gail's career was Jacksonville, Florida, trustee and director of public relations for the Art Museum. At the same time, she was heavily committed as an art instructor and as an exhibitor in several museums. She was owner and operator of Riverside Art Studio Art. And I would go over there, and she did a lot of life drawings where there would be models in all forms of dress. So sometimes we were not allowed in at certain times, but that was art. She painted in watercolors and acrylic. Music was always part of her life. There was a small room off the living room she called the Boom Boom Room. This was like a little pop-out round with windows. It was gorgeous to go in there and sit. And that was the music room. And she traded a painting for the sound system. And I mean, back in the day, it was pretty big speakers, which you didn't really see then. And there were shelves with every type of music. She would blast the classical music while she created her art. And I never really heard opera, not so much opera. And maybe that's why I really don't appreciate opera today. And sometimes she painted into the wee hours. And when she got painting, she would just be obsessed with it, and it would go on for weeks until she got it just right. And then she said, I'm finished. And then she'd walk away, and that was it. She would never touch it again to do anything in case something got on it. Most important of all was the move to make her home in Sarasota. She was here at the birth of New College in 1964 and was instrumental in helping the Fine Arts program get off the ground. She became an instructor of fine arts at the college. During that time, she started having dreams, seeing deep blue, and started a series of paintings using blues. One Lindsay has was too big, Jim couldn't get, and that was when I had mine. It was just all blue, this really deep blue.
Wouldn't fit in the car.
Right, wouldn't fit in the car, but that's all right. Maybe you've seen it at their house. One of her students saw her painting and said, Professor Mead, you must go with me to Miami to visit the ashram and meet their spiritual leader, which was Mutananda at that time. That weekend changed her life. The color blue is common to see while in deep meditation. She felt very connected. Traveled to the ashram in New York twice to study meditation and become more spiritual. She went to India by herself twice to the main ashram. Very exciting and uplifting time for her. She started a meditation center at her house here in Sarasota. She taught chanting and meditation to people of all ages and religions. She even had a Catholic priest at one time come and sit in a lot of different age groups, from very young people to very elderly. She helped people find their inner self long before Oprah made it popular. She has shown her paintings and received awards in Sarasota and all over the Southeast. She taught, painted, and lectured until her retirement in 2002 at the age of 80. And she didn't really want to retire at that age, believe me. She considered herself a symbolic artist. She looked for every painting to require interpretation. And that's a big part of the painting. you look at it and she wants you to, you know, somebody go, well, Gail, what is that? And she would never say what was her inspiration. It's like, well, what do you think it is? How does it make you feel? And sometimes she wouldn't even sign it. She'd sign it on the back. So in case she says, turn it around, see if you like it better that way. You know, it's a good feeling better. And a lot of these, she's got a little man right here, and you wouldn't even notice it. And a lot of those, you'd have to kind of look, and it's a little man. And most of them, she did do abstract, as in landscape. So you can kind of keep that in mind as a landscape. She loved her students. Well, she looked for every painting required. Mom taught at New College for over 30 years. She loved her students and made a big impact on their lives, for they called, wrote, and visited her throughout the years. Mom moved to Plymouth Harbor in 2005 after living 20 years on Clematis Street. She was asked to teach an art class at Plymouth Harbor. Teaching there really made her feel connected to the Plymouth Harbor community. And that, you know, it's hard as an adjustment going into retirement center to really get into, you know, the whole flow of it. And it took her about a year, and that art class just helped immensely. And her teaching helped them to feel art, not just copy art. She instilled in me an appreciation of all art forms: music, dance, it was a very nice dance we had earlier, the written word, and even cooking. My salads had to look colorful and artfully arranged. There's not enough color in there, Kristen. You better, put some red in there or something. And I do have a picture over here with one of her salads. You can see what I was up against. I would like to thank Jim for asking me to talk about my mom. I feel she's with me on this Mother's Day. Now, I wanted to say a couple little stories real quickly. One, while she was in the skilled nursing, we got a phone call, and this was just several days before she passed. And this man said he had called New College and tracked her down there, and could he speak with her? And we said, no, this is not a good time. Could we help you? And he said, I bought 2 paintings of your mother's when I was a young man. This is probably 40, 45 years ago. And my wife wasn't with me, and I spent too much money on them. And I brought them home. And those 2, I've lived with those paintings, and I look at them every day and enjoy them. And I wanted to see where she was today. And I thought, oh my gosh. So we told that to Mom, and she had this big smile. So her work really meant something to that man, that he tracked her down after all those years. And then another story is she was really, loved architecture, just loved designing, and she would draw her own homes, and sometimes she would trade paintings for them to make blueprints. And this one man bought a lot of her paintings, and he put in his will that when he passed away, they were willed back to her, because he didn't want them just to be cast aside. It was so important for him, and he valued that work. So sure enough, one day, a big moving van came to her house, and all of those paintings came out. And they looked, I called them the dragonfly paintings, because they're huge, just huge, and they had these, like flying, and I said, oh, those are the dragonfly paintings. And she would just smile, because probably, to her, that's wasn't what she was painting. But when we first came here, we lived on Casey Key, and she got a lot of inspiration from the sunsets and walking on the beach, and she would collect shells and driftwood, and she loved stones, and she did some stone works, and she loved bottles, and that's the bottles I brought, and the blue glass, which Lindsay's gotten into blue too. But those are some of her things, and I've got pictures of her meditation paintings where if you stare at them, the dots would start moving, and the lines would start wiggling, and she did a little series of that, and that's how she did. She kind of got into series and did a whole series of them, and then got into another inspiration. But this one was done in North Carolina after a snowy morning, and I can kind of tell it's a landscape, but that the snow is coming down, and just how she feels, and just you can see the sky, and you just stare at it, and you can visualize that. But I only found that out incidentally. She would never. She talked to somebody else, but she always wanted us to think outside the box, and how did it make you feel, Kristen? That kind of thing. But I do have a direct quote that Mom wrote about her artwork. She said, my paintings are about space/form. relationships, i.e. to man, to nature, to the unknowns. They are abstract, symbolically, and may be, this is why I had to look, dichotomies. I had to look that word up. Or involve events in time sequence. They are always problem solving, making order out of chaos. I strive to have the painting have a real presence, as it is, with a heartbeat, not simply a picture of Gail Mead. Now, dichotomy means a division or contrast between two things: difference, polarity, conflict, imbalance. And this kind of reminds me of that. One's kind of nice and smooth and calm, and then you switch down here, and this is a lot of conflict. And it looks like they're fighting against each other, and you know, she wants you to have like almost motion in it when you look at it and try to interpret. But really, she wants you just to feel it and have it, you know, mean something to you. And then the acrylic paint is how she did most of these. And it's a fast drying paint that's diluted with water, but becomes water resistant with dry. And depending on how much paint is diluted or modified with acrylic gels, media, or paste, the finished painting can resemble a watercolor or an oil painting, which I would say this is all, you know, what's this, an oil painting? But no, it's really acrylic, but it looks like oil painting. And it can have its own unique characteristics, not obtainable with other media like textures and layers. But I think what she did, she explored, she experimented, and she had a creative journey, and she loved the process of painting. She was not commercial. She did not get wealthy. I think if she had like a media, press, PR or something, she could have used her new college background and gone commercial and really went out there, but no, it meant too much, and sometimes she couldn't even give them out. She couldn't, she wanted to save them, and that's why my sister, my brother, and I, and Lindsay and Jim have a lot of her artwork, because if she was interested in selling them, we may, you know, not have many left. So I really appreciate that she passed it down throughout the families, and I know that they will do the same. But the abstract is existing in thought or as an idea, but not having a physical or concrete existence. And that is such as love or beauty. That's an abstract thought. And it can be metaphysical, but it's all with your interpretation. And so I hope you enjoyed it today, and look at her nature. She can do an illustration in a medical book and then come up with something like this. And you know, you just don't know how she went from, you know, precise drawing in a medical illustration and come up with something so forceful and meaningful to so many people that could look at it. It was a really nice thing that I got exposed to. So again, I'd like to thank Jim, but I'd also like to say that you know, that she did instill in me to look for art in all forms, and I do appreciate all forms, and I know everyone has their own talents, but I didn't get the art talent. Thank you so much. Happy Mother's Day.